It's a privilege to be here, and just to be with both leaders here and all of us trying to grapple with how we're dealing with transforming our movement to build power. Does that sound right for everybody? What we're ready to do? It's great to see Lauren here, who is like an extraordinary leader. Yes, women, sorry, right? An extraordinary leader, right? You know, with this groundbreaking network that they're building. This is like really important stuff. And bringing with us, one of the themes I want to have is how do we bring with us the work we've done, how do we learn from it, and how do we build on it, all right? And so that's what it's great to see Lauren here, to see Larry, who we spent, when I was field director at the AFL-CIO, we spent hours figuring out how do you build labor community power locally through both labor councils and Jobs with Justice. And I just so appreciate everything Larry's done. And having Maritza here on what I call the hope, right, as far the future, where we're headed and how do we get there. Anyway, it's great to be here, and it's nice to see so many faces of folks I know here. So this is, and as I said, may we all continue to keep learning and building on being able to say, this is what we're letting go of. We tried it, and it didn't work. And here's stuff that we really did get to work. How do we build on it? And I think that's the challenge now. And again, to quote Lauren, there's not one strategy that's going to turn all this around, but may we think about all these strategies and also align them, right? That's part of, for me, the real challenge. So I wanted to speak specifically about something called bargaining for the common good. Has anybody heard that? Oh, good. Well, it's a growing movement, and it's extraordinarily exciting. Let me see. I think I warned you. I said I'll need help. So bargaining for the common good is about starting to reimagine how we're operating right now and how do we think bigger. And again, to pick up on what Penny said, not to go on the defense and go inward, but actually go outward to build power. Anybody ready to go on offense? Anybody? Is anybody here ready to go on offense for a change, right? This is like we have to. You know, it's taking on teachers getting pitted against parents, or healthcare workers getting pitted against patients, or bank workers, Larry, right? Getting pitted against customers, right? And transit workers. I mean, you can go on and on. I see Melanie here, right? It's like, how do we shift this narrative, but also do it in a way that builds power? So there's a growing movement that's happening that helps lift up both the workers, our members, right, in the movement, but also lifts and connects it to both the communities they're part of and also the communities they live in, right, and the communities they serve, which is the heart of the bargaining, and taking it to the heart of the bargaining process, which is not something unions have done much of, that we haven't. We've tried, but not enough. Ironically, employers keep narrowing the scope of bargaining, right? Any of you had that where they keep narrowing and getting it smaller and smaller, and then all of a sudden we're focused on, you know, a quarter more here, or like wages and benefits, right? So who wins when they narrow the scope of bargaining, right? We don't. Then they're saying, oh, look how greedy those nurses are. Look how greedy these folks are. This is shifting this. To me, the two challenges are, how do we tackle the narrowing of the scope of bargaining, and to the inward focus? Like this whole, with Janice, one of the things I just want to be really direct about is I worry that so many of us are looking more inward and on the defense. How do we talk to a smaller and smaller group of our members to try to keep them on? Does anybody have that experience? Anybody seeing it? Right? It's true we have to talk to our members, but it's also how do we do it in a context that reimagines what's possible and also inspires them that the labor movement is a vehicle to change the world. Anybody ready for that one? All right. So So this isn't new, right? It's like we're building again on what many of us have been working on our lives, but it's reimagining bargaining, which is when, how many of you, when members are most focused on the union, right? That's when they are. How do we reimagine that moment and actually expand and re-inspire our members? And I would say both our current members, but also our potential members. And also, how do we link this work to the communities that we work in? And remembering our members are parents, renters, neighbors, immigrants, black, brown, white. We carry all of this with us, right? So how do we link those lives together? So that's really what bargaining for the common good is. To me, it's about building power, and I don't think we have a choice but to build power, and it's the kind of energy that'll help us get there. So let me just give you a concrete example, all right? This was when I was in St. Paul recently, and of course it was in the middle of the winter, so it was freezing. But there had been a history there where the teachers were constantly pitted against the parents. Does that sound familiar? I don't know if that happens in the schools here, right? Right? You know, we would do this for you, but those parents, or the parents, those greedy teachers, right? And so they really, the local there said, we got to change this dynamic. So instead of getting pitted, they brought the parents in. And they started saying, like, what kind of schools do you want for your kids? Right? How do we do this together? Because we have so much more that unites us. And as a result, the parents not only came up with all kinds of bargaining demands, then the union brought the parents with them to the bargaining table. How do you think management reacted? What are they doing there, right? It's like it shifted it, and all of a sudden the management's saying, this isn't a mandatory subject of bargaining. And how do you think the parents felt? They went nuts because they started like putting down all the bargaining demands that the parents came up with and said enough, right? So the parents got totally energized, started bringing other people into the mix, and the whole union has been transformed in terms of what it's trying to fight for and who's helping to design what the bargaining demands are, who's at the table. It's all shifting. And over the years now, they're actually getting bigger and bigger. So for example, they've also connected with racial justice groups in the community. They've also connected to housing groups. Now, what does housing have to do with our kids? Right? What does race have to do with their kids? Right? They then recently, they put over a demand and won it around restorative justice. Does everybody know what restorative justice? It's a way in the schools, right? So instead of disciplining kids, and just suspending or expelling kids, how do you actually restore? How do you help people succeed? So they put this whole bargaining demand, and I will share with you a whole bunch of bargaining demands, but around racial justice. They also, what do you think the impact is for banks to foreclose on families during a school year? Does that have an impact on kids? Okay. The teachers union, right, put forward a demand, right, that said that the school district shall not work with any bank that will foreclose on families during the school year. Have you heard of something like that before, right? And they got it. But they only got it because they built power, and they built those alliances, and they built that connection. You with me? All right? Let me give you I'll give you another example, is the city, I better go fast. Anybody here Fix LA? I'm gonna show this video very fast. I think. Hold on. You know what? I'm not gonna show the video unless, show it? Okay, if you can help. So again, there were certain people who were trying to defund the public sector in LA, which will surprise you, right? The same people who were trying to defund public services, I think, is it going? Yeah, you can go.
My name is Simboya Wright. I'm a wastewater collection worker for LA Sanitation, City of Los Angeles. As a wastewater collection worker, I help maintain the city's sewer system and storm drain system.
In 2006, LA City officials entered into agreement with New York Mellon Bank. To date, this horrible bank deal has cost us $65 million. And if our elected officials don't do anything about it, it's going to cost us $140 million. It's impacting city services in many ways. We're looking at all these different things that the city is not doing for the citizens anymore. We're looking at filthy, dirty streets, dirty alleys. We see furniture everywhere. So we see a health issue. We see a lot of harmful things that are not being picked up in the streets, and also the sewer system is not being appropriately taken care of. We're looking at sewage spills every other day, and we only see that half of the sewers are being maintained.
One of the biggest challenges for wastewater workers is trying to maintain 39,000 catch basins. It takes 80 employees. We're down to 24. It's very difficult. A catch basin basically captures all of the trash and debris, and what we do, we bring a giant Vector truck. It's basically a wet vac. We suck up all the trash and debris, and we take that and dump it at our Hyperion treatment plant. If we don't continue to maintain the catch basins, we can have trash and debris ranging from dead animals, ammonia bottles, bleach bottles, and just everyday trash that people throw on the street enter into the Los Angeles River, the Port of Los Angeles, and the Santa Monica Bay.
You know, we have to speak on behalf of the poor and the destitute. And when we see this disparity of hundreds of millions of dollars going to rich banks, and then the city is not doing anything to address the issues that we have in our city, we have a big problem in our hands.
We got the answer. We don't need to go in there cutting any more money from the workers' pockets. We don't need to go in there cutting any more street services or community services.
We are marching to let these people know that we need to fix our streets, not Wall Street. Stop giving it away to the banks and the big corporations.
We're going to march, I think, down to City Hall, and our goal is to try and get the council, CAO's office, and the mayor to work with us to try and fix Los Angeles.
All right, so here's the bottom line. What we were trying to show is both alignment. You'll see here, I hope. Wait, oh no, I don't want the video again. This is my single weakest, many of weakest. Next, why isn't it going here? The next slide. So here's the bottom line. Several groups came together, and instead of, that's fine. All right. Thanks. There was an alignment to go on offense and to disrupt. Just to underscore so much of what Lauren said, it's like groups came together. What they found out, they did research and realized that the city of Los Angeles, when they were with the same characters that were defunding the city of Los Angeles, right, were actually then loaning money back to the city of Los Angeles. Do you know how much the research found that that the city of Los Angeles was paying $300 million just in fees? You know, on your credit card, we're not talking about paying it back. This is just fees. Do you think the city of LA could have used that $300 million for something else? Could have fixed all of the streets? But what, again, the brilliance of this campaign is that what they did is they didn't do it just as a jobs issue. This was a community issue. And they thought about how to take the issue and expand who was all involved with it. So here's the bottom line, because I know I'm short on time here, is that what we've been trying to do is this is happening in more and more places across the country, and it's been great because we've been able to convene folks across the country who are working in different areas. And we've lifted up some key elements. that are outside. We have handouts for you that actually talk about what are the key elements. And we're not going to go through them all, but the bottom line is it's expanding the scope of bargaining. How do we think about intentionally expanding it, right, beyond wages and benefits, to go on offense and really identify and expose the real villains? Because there are folks profiting off of all this. We cannot forget that. And how do we do that? And especially, I think it's just getting worse. Actually, I know it's getting worse. How's that? To engage community allies as partners in issues and in the bargaining campaign. People love to be involved, and it just builds strength for both, for all of us. To center racial justice. And this, I could say, we should put this as 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? Because it's so critical in this, and there's systemic racism that we need to take on that employers are pushing and supporting. That this is the other thing we're learning, is that when we're in, that these campaigns have a way of inspiring our members, that we talk to them, find out what their issues are, and can really fight about those issues at the bargaining table. It's powerful. And lastly, and also leveraging capital in our campaigns. Anybody deal with pension funds, endowments? That's our money in many of those cases, right? And that the underscore that the campaign doesn't end once the union settles a contract. So one of the things that I think we're going to mail out to everybody who's here, we just have captured all these incredible bargaining demands that are coming up around the country, what people are really pushing for. And they are things that will knock your socks off. We have, and we'll share those, but really putting racial justice front and center. We have demands around climate justice that people are saying, what, right? Yes, right, well, especially speaking of that report. Around education, and I think a lot of the unions involved in education are doing some extraordinary work. Finance, immigration, public services, private sector, we're exploring and starting to build on. I want to give a shout out to Larry, because anybody hear about the Wells Fargo fiasco, right? Right. This was an issue of workers, bank workers, who are then pushed to sell predatory, just do all kinds of terrible stuff, for customers that were coming in and really screwing over customers. And the bank workers said, enough, we're not going to do it. So who do you think really was behind bringing down Wells Fargo? It was these workers. And I want to just give a shout out to CWA. That's an example in the private sector of bargaining for the common good. And then we have, as I said, we're going to give you a whole bunch of bargaining demands, but they're really concrete. I mean, literally, this is that foreclosure piece, right? About no foreclosure during the school year. This was how to really take on the Wall Street investment. This is one of my favorites. If I can't read it as well, but you can. But we'll send these all out to you. Sanctuary employers, how do you think our members feel when we take this on and that say that we won't collaborate with ICE, right? It's really powerful. And again, this is a growing movement. It's one of the pieces of what I would say the puzzle and the strategy, and we're really inspired and we can't wait to work with you on it. Anyway, thank you all.